In 2020, scientists aboard a research icebreaker in the Amundsen Sea near West Antarctica drilled into the seafloor. A research team aboard the RV Polarstern icebreaker examines a long cylindrical sediment core pulled from the seafloor in the Amundsen Sea off West Antarctica. The core was visibly darker in color at a specific section that catches the attention of the researchers immediately. The core they pulled up was mostly unremarkable, gray sediment, ocean floor material, until they reached a section that looked completely different, dark brownish-gray, rich, organic, like soil from a forest floor. When they CT scanned it, the images showed something that had no business being 900 kilometers from the South Pole. A dense network of fossilized roots, individual cell structures still intact after 90 million years, pollen from conifers, tree ferns, and flowering shrubs. The first remnants of flowering plants ever found at these high Antarctic latitudes. Dr. Johann Klages of the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany led the research team. His description of the sample was direct. If you were to go to a forest close to your house and dig a hole several feet in the ground, it would look like this sample. A 90-million-year-old forest soil, in perfect preservation, under the seafloor of the Amundsen Sea, 900 kilometers from the South Pole. Today, Where on Earth explains what that soil reveals about the planet Antarctica used to be, and the specific tectonic and atmospheric sequence that turned it into the permanent ice sheet that exists today. Subscribe to Where on Earth and hit the bell. Now let us understand the world that produced this soil. A visualization shows Earth as it appeared during the mid-Cretaceous period, 92 million years ago. The continents are in different positions, with Gondwana only partially broken apart and Antarctica still connected to South America and Australia. 90 million years ago, the mid-Cretaceous was the warmest interval on Earth in the last 140 million years. The tropics reached 35 degrees Celsius. Sea levels were approximately 170 meters higher than today. The Antarctic continent was at least partially covered in dense swampy temperate rainforest. The annual mean air temperature at the fossil site was approximately 12 to 13 degrees Celsius, comparable to the average annual temperature in Germany today. Summer temperatures reached 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Rainfall was similar to modern Wales. Professor Tina van de Vliert of Imperial College London was a co-author of the study published in Nature in April 2020. Her description of the discovery is significant. Even during months of darkness, swampy temperate rainforests were able to grow close to the South Pole, revealing an even warmer climate than we expected, even during months of darkness. Antarctica receives 4 months of near total darkness every year at the South Pole. These forests survived that darkness and thrived. The question the researchers had to answer was what kept a location this far south this warm. Their climate modeling provided the answer. A graph shows atmospheric CO2 levels across geological time, with the mid-Cretaceous period highlighted. To reproduce the temperatures preserved in the fossil record, the climate models needed atmospheric CO2 concentrations of 1,120 to 1,680 parts per million. Current atmospheric CO2 is approximately 425 parts per million. The Cretaceous Antarctic rainforest required CO2 levels approximately 3 to 4 times higher than today just to maintain the temperatures preserved in the fossils. Professor Garrett Lohman of the Alfred Wegener Institute explained the modeling result. We thought the CO2 levels were about 2.5 times our current levels, but in our model-based experiments, it took concentration levels of 1,120 to 1,680 ppm to reach the average temperatures back then in the Antarctic, higher than even the researchers expected. This was not a greenhouse world with slightly elevated CO2. It was a hothouse world where CO2 at levels humans have never experienced and are nowhere near approaching was the baseline condition keeping the South Pole from freezing. No ice sheet existed. Without a bright reflective ice sheet, the dark vegetation absorbed solar heat, amplifying the greenhouse warming further. The rainforest sustained itself. And the question is, How and when did it end? Now let us understand the timeline and why it matters. A geological timeline shows the key events. The Cretaceous rainforest existed around 90 million years ago. Then there is a long gap in the record. At 34 million years ago, the Eocene-Oligocene boundary occurs. That is where the Antarctic ice sheet rapidly formed. The outline of this video described Antarctica flash freezing immediately after the rainforest era. The real timeline is more complex and in some ways more remarkable. The rainforest existed approximately 90 million years ago. The Antarctic ice sheet formed approximately 34 million years ago. 56 million years separate the last Antarctic forests from the first Antarctic glaciers. For 56 million years, Antarctica existed in a warm but transitional state with no permanent ice sheets on the scale of today. The planet slowly cooled as atmospheric carbon dioxide levels declined over geological time. Then, approximately 34 million years ago, something happened that rapidly accelerated that cooling into catastrophic permanent glaciation. Two tectonic gateways opened. Now let us understand these openings and what they did. A tectonic map shows Antarctica in the Eocene still partially connected to the surrounding continents. It then shows the opening of the Tasmanian Seaway between Antarctica and Australia. Next, it shows the opening of the Drake Passage between Antarctica and South America. For most of the time since the Cretaceous, Antarctica was not completely isolated. It remained connected to Australia in the east and South America in the west by narrow land or shallow sea connections. These connections allowed warm ocean water from the tropics to circulate along Antarctica's coasts. They delivered heat from the equator to the southern continent. Then, approximately 33.5 million years ago, the Tasmanian Seaway between East Antarctica and Australia opened to deepwater circulation. And approximately 31 to 34 million years ago, the Drake Passage between the Antarctic Peninsula and the southern tip of South America opened. These two openings completed the one geographic prerequisite that had been missing: a continuous deepwater channel running entirely around Antarctica. And in that continuous channel, something extraordinary began to happen. A visualization shows the Antarctic Circumpolar current developing. It flows clockwise from west to east around Antarctica as seen from the South Pole, a powerful circular current with no landmass to interrupt it. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, the largest ocean current on Earth. It flows clockwise from west to east around Antarctica continuously without any landmass to interrupt or deflect it. Its mean transport is estimated at 137 million cubic meters of water per second, larger than all the world's rivers combined. Wikipedia's confirmed description of its function is direct. The current keeps warm ocean waters away from Antarctica, enabling that continent to maintain its huge ice sheet. That is what it does. But in the Eocene, when it first formed, it was not maintaining an ice sheet. It was creating one. Before the Drake Passage and Tasmanian Seaway opened, warm tropical water had been able to reach Antarctic coastlines. Once the circumpolar current established itself, it acted as a thermal barrier. A circular moat of cold water flowing around the entire continent, preventing warm tropical water from crossing it. Antarctica was thermally isolated. Simultaneously, atmospheric CO2 had been declining over millions of years since the Cretaceous hothouse. At the Eocene-Oligocene boundary approximately 34 million years ago, CO2 declined below approximately 750 parts per million. Climate models identify that level as the threshold below which permanent Antarctic glaciation becomes inevitable. The combination was decisive. Thermal isolation from the circumpolar current. CO2 below the glaciation threshold. Snow that fell began to persist through the summer rather than melting. Snow that persists reflects sunlight rather than absorbing it, cooling the surface further. More snow accumulated. More cooling occurred. The feedback loop accelerated. Ice formed where snow had accumulated. Ice reflects more sunlight than snow. More cooling. More ice. Geologists describe what happened next as a geological blink. The Antarctic ice sheet grew from essentially no permanent ice to something approaching its modern extent in perhaps a few 100,000 years. Measured against the 56 million years the continent had existed since the Rainforest era, this was extraordinarily rapid. A continent covered in swampy temperate rainforest 90 million years ago. A continent covered in ice kilometers thick by 34 million years ago. The same continent, the same geography, an entirely different planet. Now, let us understand what this tells us about the planet we are living on now. A modern satellite image of West Antarctica shows the Pine Island Glacier and Thwaites Glacier, where the 2020 fossil soil was discovered. The ice surface visible from above with meltwater visible at the margins. Professor Tina van de Vliert of Imperial College made the connection direct. It's important for us to understand this region's past climate if we are to predict the future of how Antarctica is going to respond to environmental change. The fossil soil beneath the Amundsen Sea was found near Pine Island Glacier and Thwaites Glacier. These are currently among the most rapidly melting glacier systems on Earth. The ice that sits above the site where 90-million-year-old rainforest soil was found is the same ice that modern climate scientists describe as the most important ice for future global sea levels. If the Thwaites Glacier were to collapse, it could raise global sea levels by approximately 60 centimeters on its own. The full West Antarctic ice sheet that sits above this region could eventually raise sea levels by approximately 3 to 4 meters. The rainforest era had sea levels 170 meters higher than today. The CO2 that produced those conditions was 1,120 to 1,680 parts per million. Today's CO2 is 425 parts per million, rising at approximately 2 to 3 parts per million per year. The planet's history contains a record of what high CO2 does to Antarctica over geological time. That record is preserved in a core of dark brownish-grey soil pulled from the Amundsen Sea floor with fossil roots so well preserved you can still see their individual cells. The forest is gone. The record it left behind is not. Subscribe to Where on Earth for weekly geography that reveals the physical history of the planet we are currently changing. Hit the bell and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because the world looks very different when you understand that the ice sheet beneath which scientists found a 90-million-year-old rainforest is the same ice sheet whose future is the most important geographic question of the next century.